Star Trek Voyager, Starfleet Academy, Quarantine, Chapter 7. It was toward morning, and Kathryn noticed that Governor O'Neill was taking no chances. A guard now walked past the large window every 10 minutes, no doubt the result of the broken monitoring camera. Most of the Obers were asleep, thanks to Lane's words and hand gestures soothing them. But Kathryn was too restless to relax. "That's it," she whispered to herself, standing up. "I'm sick of not knowing what's going on." Slipping quietly around several sleeping Ober children, she made her way toward the Zahn's cot. "Zahn," she whispered urgently, sitting down on the side of the bed and leaning toward the older Ober. "Zahn, it's me, Kathryn." The Zahn looked up, her large blue eyes glassy from the fever. "You must find a way out," said the Zahn, waving her left hand wildly. She grabbed Kathryn's hands with her long fingers. "You must get away. There is a cure for the disease, a seagrass along the oceans. But they won't let us leave the dome. No one is ever let out of the domes." The Zahn let go of her hands. "The Chats found the Cillian plague again and sent it through my people," she whispered. "But," Kathryn started to ask. "It's Governor O'Neill," she said, staring into Kathryn's eyes. "He and the other Chats want to get rid of my people. We were once part of the government, but the Chats took over. They don't want us working our way back into the government." She lowered her voice, speaking quickly and urgently, almost like a Chat. "But, Kathryn, some of my people have escaped to the outside and are in hiding. Not all of my people believe it, but many of us know the air is clean outside the domes, and there is plenty of land for all of the Chatub. The Chats want to get rid of the Obers who know. So they kill all of us, so the Chats will continue to believe the air outside the dome will kill them. They want to control their people under the domes." "But what's the point of contaminating us with the plague?" "If the Federation thinks Chatub is a plague planet," said the Zahn weakly, "they'll give more technology and help to the Chatub government to find the answer. I can imagine Nima is ecstatic now that he has contaminated you. That way the Federation will send aid even faster." "Nima is not a stupid man, Kathryn. With more technology, he has more power." The Zahn started to cough again, a ragged sound that came from deep inside her chest, as if she'd smoked 10 packs of cigarettes a day. She raised her hands in the air, then folded her long fingers across her chest, curling into a ball on the bed. Kathryn started to panic. She had heard that sound before, lungs filling with fluid from infection. She remembered the same sound coming from her sister Phoebe when she was only 5 years old, her sister sick with bronchitis. Kathryn's family had gone backpacking for several days when her sister started to cough. Her father had insisted that the family rough it, so they had no communicator or location device. Brilliant. She remembered the grueling 7-hour walk out of the nature preserve, each of them taking turns carrying Phoebe through the thick forest, all the while her sister coughing. Kathryn was startled by someone yelling and pulling on her shoulder. Just what are you doing?" came the deep voice of Lane. "Can't you see she's ill?" "Sorry, I was just snooping around," interrupted Lane, his eyes flashing. He gestured with his hands toward Marie's cot and the other cadets. "Just like your friends. I've been watching all of you, and I don't care what the Zahn says. I'm beginning to think you're all spies." Lane pulled Kathryn up roughly, forcing her to stand. "Hey, I was just..." "You were what?" asked Lane, his usual soothing voice quivering with rage. "Did Nema send you to spy, or is the Great Federation really working for Nema?" Kathryn pulled her arm away from Lane, but he was still able to hold her hand in a tight grip, his 3 long fingers twisting all the way around her hand. "We are not spies," she said, turning her head so she could stare into the wide eyes of the tall Ober. "We just want some answers." Out of the corner of her eye, Kathryn saw the Zon push herself to a sitting position. She made a weak circle with her hand, then called out to Lane. "Lane, Kathryn is not a spy. You have my word." Lane's grip lessened on Kathryn's hand. "I told her about the seagrasses, Lane. It's the only way." Lane held the Zon's gaze for a moment, then turned to look at Kathryn. She could see the torment in the Ober's mind. He nodded quickly and released her hand. The Zon lowered herself on the cot and closed her eyes. "Somehow, Kathryn, you have to get outside. Gather the grasses from the sea to save us. Please." Kathryn forced herself to smile. "Don't worry, Zon. I'll find a way." Coffee. It was the middle of the night. Kathryn didn't feel like sleeping, and neither did the other cadets. For most of the day, they sat on the floor near Mary's cot, talking quietly about how to escape to the outside, but they couldn't agree on a plan. Blinar and Timothy were whispering back and forth, while Laswa played with several small wires and metal pieces from the blasted communications panel she had hidden in her jacket. "What are you doing, Laswa?" Kathryn asked. "Communication is important," the Hossack whispered. "I can make a crude communicator. We may use it somehow." "What's crude about it? I mean, like, does it put in bad words when you talk, or... sorry, bad joke." Kathryn nodded and looked around, half listening to the others. She was frustrated, wondering what her father would do in a situation like this, or what he would expect her to do. She knew she should face this problem one step at a time, but what was her first step? And not only that, she noticed that Laswa's hair was still as perfect as the first day she saw her. "Now I know I'm feeling sorry for myself," thought Kathryn, sighing. "I just can't believe this," Timothy was saying. He leaned his head against a wall. "I spent my entire life wanting to join Starfleet Academy. I even did my solo shuttle pod flight when I was 16 just to qualify. And now look, on my first mission, I'm quarantined from the universe." Blinar snorted. "I know what you mean, Timothy. I wanted to be the first Teji in the Federation and show my father that he was wrong," he said, almost in a whisper, "that the Federation people were really better than he thought. Now I may not get my chance." Kathryn looked at the Teji. It sounded like Blinar had the same problem she did. Her father always won the arguments when she saw him. So there was a reason for Blinar's pompous attitude. Maybe she was translating his enthusiasm for Starfleet as arrogance, or even that he was scared. Though she tried not to think about it, she was scared too. "Listen," she said finally, leaning toward the others. "Let's go over this once more. Marie is getting sicker. It could be the plague or even the flu. Or maybe that weird carrot he ate," added Timothy, scrunching his face. "Whatever. None of us has the medical background to tell," Kathryn answered. "But it may mean we can catch the plague. And as each one of us gets sick, it gets more difficult to escape," she added, looking over at Laswa. "Not to mention that we don't know how you and Blinar will react to the plague." "And your suggestion?" whispered Laswa. Before Kathryn could answer, she heard a strange moaning noise. Laswa nudged her and pointed to the sealed door on the far side of the room. In the dim light, Kathryn could see a lone Ober muttering softly over a wrapped body, sometimes rocking back and forth, sometimes gesturing with his hands as he spoke with ceremonial chant. As Kathryn and the other cadets watched, the man pushed on the sealed door on the far wall. As the door slid open, the Ober placed the wrapped body on a slab inside, then stood back. There was a whirling noise, and smoke from the other side of the door covered the body. The Ober chanted again for about a minute, and when the smoke cleared, the body was gone. As the chanter walked back to his cot, the door sealed shut with a quiet hiss. Kathryn looked at the others, her eyes wide. The cadet stood up and walked quietly over to the door, Laswa looking through the door's small, yellowed window. "He is gone. I do not believe in magic, Kathryn." "Me neither," she whispered, taking her turn to peer through the window. "Bodies just don't disappear. There's something familiar." Kathryn stood back from the door and snapped her fingers. "I know. I read about it just recently in one of our history books. Didn't Captain James T. Kirk meet up with something like this on the planets Eminiar VII and Vendikar? The people were at war for 500 years, but used no weapons. The attacks were launched mathematically by computers. When the citizens were declared casualties, they would voluntarily report to disintegration chambers. Maybe these people are being disintegrated too." "Such chambers have certain sounds, a certain look. Not this chamber," said Laswa. "And I thought I saw the slab move," added Timothy. He peered through the small window. "And look, on the other side of the slab." Kathryn moved to look inside the chamber again. Across the room was another small door. "An airlock, I bet, so they aren't disintegrated." Blinar nodded. "An airlock is a perfect way to make a body disappear." Kathryn looked through the small window again just to make sure her eyes weren't playing tricks on her. For the first time since they ended up in the Great Hall, she felt hopeful. "Cadets, we needed an escape plan, and I think we may have found one." Chapter 8. "You went into the chamber?" asked Lane, staring wide-eyed at Kathryn and Blinar. His right hand gestured in a circle at the chamber, then fell to his side. "No, we just looked in the window after the body disappeared," she explained. "And Lane, we saw what looked like an airlock on the other side of the chamber." Kathryn glanced at Blinar. "An airlock could be the key to our escape," Blinar added. Kathryn continued, not allowing the Ober to get a word in. "Here's my plan. Marie will play dead. Laswa rigged up a primitive communications device from the wall panel pieces. So after we slip him into the chamber and he gets outside, he'll contact our ship. They'll come and get us, then use everything in their power to help your people find a cure." She took a deep breath, waiting for his response. Lane closed his eyes and bent his head. After a few seconds, he opened his eyes even wider than usual and looked at Kathryn. "The chamber is off limits to us and has become a sacred place. I fear no one will go along with your plan, but if I explain that it may help find a cure for the plague, maybe they will understand." He stood up slowly, almost as if he were tired and worn. Kathryn noticed he shivered as he walked over to a group of Obers. "The start of the plague," she thought, shaking her head. Kathryn and Blinar walked over to Laswa and Timothy, who were standing near Marie's cot. Timothy leaned over the sick cadet. "Marie, old buddy, are you sure you want to go through with this?" "Count me in," he said, his teeth chattering. "I get wrapped in blanket's so warm. I get a communications device so we can talk. And I get to magically disappear. It can't be any worse than riding a dog sled with only one dog in the middle of a blizzard, right? Or facing Lieutenant Moldov's planetary exploration final exam, Timothy joked, smiling at his friend. Laswa dug into her pocket and pulled out the crude communications device. She attached it to his dark tunic. You talk to me, I talk to you. The circuit is always open. Contact the ship, too. As they wrapped Marie in several sheets near the chamber door, all sorts of questions were going through Kathryn's mind. And after all, it was risky. Would the Obers stop them? Does the airlock really lead to the outside, or are government troops waiting on the other side? Would Marie be able to contact the ship? She also wondered how she, as a simple scientist, ever managed to get into this position. Several minutes after they finished wrapping Marie in the sheets, Lane walked up to the cadets. As I thought, no one likes your plan. But why? Asked Timothy, looking down at his wrapped-up friend. Marie is willing to sacrifice. The Obers do not want to escape. They are sick and weak. They feel they may contaminate their own people if they leave the Great Hall, Lane explained, folding his long fingers in front of him as if he were tired. But they will allow Marie to pass beyond the chamber. I will help you. He reached over and touched several light-colored squares on the wall panel's round pad. There, I just reported Marie's death. While we wait, I must chant. As Lane began the ceremonial chant and hand gestures over Marie's body, Kathryn looked over at Blynar. She could tell he was nervous. His ears were twitching from time to time. Laswa and Timothy were huddled together, occasionally whispering. Kathryn jumped visibly as a sealed door opened. Each cadet grabbed a corner of Marie's blanket and lifted him. Watch the merchandise. Kathryn heard Marie whisper loudly. Blynar frowned and pulled on his side of the blanket. Shh. Carrying the body, the cadets moved toward the open chamber. As they lifted him onto the slab, Marie's sheet caught on the table, causing Laswa to stumble. Sorry, Marie, the Hasek whispered. Kathryn looked around quickly. Let him down easy, she said, lowering her side of the blanket. Oomph, said the blanket. Timothy looked up at Kathryn and tried to smile. Should I kick him? Kathryn shook her head at Timothy. No, he may yell again, and he's our only ticket to the outside. Nothing like feeling used. Anyway, moaned Marie in a low voice. Shh, responded the four cadets around him. Lane chanted, and the cadets retreated back into the great hall. As they watched, smoke covered their friend's body. A minute later, the smoke was gone, and so was Marie. Moving slowly, the cadets turned and walked back to an empty corner of the room, trying not to disturb the Obers. Marie, Laswa whispered urgently into the communications device. Talk to me. The device clicked twice. Oof, came the response. After a few seconds, Marie continued. Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, sorry. Marie, yeah, I'm fine. Kathryn grabbed Laswa's arm and smiled. Timothy almost shouted out loud, but Blynar held up his hand. I'm almost unwrapped. I'm trying the ship. Tsiolkovsky, come in. Captain? Static burst out of the device. Kathryn held her breath. Marie? Here, Kathryn, he answered, his voice fading in and out. The ship is beaming me up. It worked. You go, but... The device went dead. They all looked at each other, stunned. Now what? Kathryn noticed that Timothy's voice had a touch of panic in it. Kathryn knew how he felt. They knew that Marie had made it outside. Did the government officials find him? Was he beamed up to the ship? Or was he still out there, cold and ill, with no help from his friends? Kathryn thought of how this was her plan. Was this what it was like to be a leader? To make the decisions? Maybe lose one of your team? She felt almost sick to her stomach. "I think we should go after him," she finally said, her voice firm with determination. "The guard walks by every 10 minutes. We can time it so we enter the chamber after he passes, then hop into the open airlock." "How do we know where to go from there?" asked Blinar, looking skeptically at Kathryn. "You still have me," said Lane, walking up to the cadets. He shivered slightly as he continued, his arms at his side. "I'm not afraid to be outside the dome. I was out there once and lived to tell tales about the adventure. We could go look for Marie, and we could also go find the seagrass that will help my people. I know the obers outside the domes know how to process medicine. We can contact them. Oh, I hate these shivers." "Good idea, but not you, Lane," Laswa protested. "I have been watching you. You show signs of the plague." "Yeah, it's only the beginning. I'm still strong, and after all," he said, turning to Kathryn, "who else can pick out the correct grasses from the sea?" Kathryn hesitated. "All right," she whispered to Lane, then turned to the others. "And I'll be the body this time." "No, I want to be," protested Timothy. "Kathryn, Marie's my best friend. If I sent him out there and something went wrong, well, it's the least I can do right now." Blinar snorted, his ears twitching at Timothy. "I would make a better body." "No," said Kathryn. "Timothy's right. So far the chats think only humans can get the plague. So let's give them another human." As they prepared Timothy, Kathryn looked around. Everywhere the obers were whispering to each other. Many times their voices would raise and their hands would gesture almost furiously toward the cadets, but still no one stepped up to offer their help. According to Lane, they were all too sick with the plague, too weak and scared to run and fight. They wrapped Timothy in a short time, and just after the guard walked by, Lane began the chant. Kathryn watched as the chamber opened. Lane put Timothy's wrapped body on the slab and slid inside. Just as quickly, Kathryn, Laswa, and Blinar slipped into the chamber just as the room filled with smoke. With a hiss and pop, the airlock door opened. As Timothy's wrapped body slid off the slab, the others plunged through the open airlock door right behind him. The airlock door slid shut, then hissed as it was sealed. Kathryn crouched down next to Timothy and motioned to the others to do the same. Suddenly, the air inside the small chamber changed dramatically. It was no longer stale and warm, but it was wonderfully refreshing and cool. Kathryn took a deep breath, her head clearing with the fresh air, and just as suddenly, the floor dropped out from under her.